The walls are coming down. Call for help. Can we stay in this place? The recent flooding in China has been severe. Due to the heavy rains in the upper reaches of the Yangtze River, the water level in the Three Gorges Reservoir has risen further. Under these circumstances, the Three Gorges Dam had to open 11 holes from July 10th to 15th to release flood water, which led to the disaster in the middle and lower reaches of the Three Gorges becoming even more severe. Look at the situation in Sichuan Province, upstream of the Three Gorges Dam. Since July 8th, heavy rains have been falling in the Chongqing area. On July 11th, the second flood peak of the Yangtze River was formed, coded as the Yangtze River Flood Number 2 of 2024. This flood number 2 caused at least 29 rivers in Chongqing to flood above the warning level, and 13 districts and counties suffered from flooding. Cities and towns were flooded, and many houses collapsed after being flooded with water up to 3 meters deep in some streets. Look at this, the houses have collapsed, the tiles on the roofs are shattered, even the brick houses have been washed down, and the mountains have landslides. Oh my god, the streets are 2 meters deep. The first floors of these houses are finished, and people are trapped inside. That's a lifeboat. The following is a look at the Three Gorges Reservoir after the release of floodwaters downstream, showing the areas affected by the situation. As the upstream flooding intensified, the torrential floodwaters continued to pour into the Three Gorges Reservoir, resulting in further water level elevation. The Three Gorges Dam on July 10th began to open the first hole to release water. On July 13th, 6 holes were released, and the reservoir level rose to the highest level in history during the same period, up to 165.72 meters, exceeding the flood limit level of 20.72 meters. The inlet flow was 51,500 cubic meters per second, and the outlet flow was 37,500 cubic meters per second. On July 14th, 9 holes were opened to accelerate the release of floodwater to release the floodwater stored in the previous period. By July 15th, the Three Gorges Reservoir met the expected flood peak again, with a flow rate of 45,000 cubic meters per second. The Three Gorges Reservoir water level rose to 165.86 meters, which was higher than the record. Under such dire circumstances, Hebei Province, located in the lower reaches of the Yangtze River, has been severely affected by flooding since July 14th. Cities such as Xi'an, Xiangyang, Wuhan, Yichang, and 11 others have seen a dramatic rise in river levels, rapid water flow, and flooding in some town streets. All the water that came up flooded the streets, so there were so many cars, so who could accompany them? But they had to admit their bad luck. I'm at the Guangcai market in Xiangyang. Everyone is transferring their properties. Look at the front and the back. It's a sea of water.
这里是湖北省襄阳市广彩云湾。
This is Guangcai Yunwan Village, Xianyang City, Hebei Province. Today is July 16th at 6:17 a.m. The water level has dropped slightly, but the flooding is still severe.
这个水位呢降了一点点，但是水依然没有停。
The flood can't go any higher. If it does, it's going to be a disaster. We can't hold out downstream of the Three Gorges Dam flooding. On the second day of the flood, you could still see the railings, but on the third day, you couldn't even see the railings. Now, even the steps are flooded, and if the flooding continues tomorrow, even the streetlights will be flooded. On July 14th, Danjiangkou in Hebei Province was also severely affected. From the outgoing video, we can see that the city streets are seriously flooded. The water level has already submerged most of the vehicles, and the floodwater carries a lot of mud and stones. On July 15th, a van carrying passengers was swept away by the water while crossing a bridge in Suzhou City, Hebei Province, and 4 people, including the elderly and children, were killed. In addition to flooding many cities on the lower reaches of the Yangtze River, a massive landslide occurred on the hillside along the Yangtze River in Yangchang City, Hebei Province, on the morning of July 17th. Half of the mountain collapsed, and the mountain highway also slid down the mountain. The scene is shocking. People in the video shout that there is a person on the hillside who should not be able to run away. Oh my god, there's another person running there, right in that field. It's too late. All the dirt on top of the mountain is coming down. The Three Gorges Dam of the Yangtze River was controversial before its construction. Since its completion and the start of water storage in 2003, the dam has cut off the flow of water for storage, resulting in a severe water shortage in the nearly 2,000-kilometer-long section of the river from the downstream of the dam to the mouth of the sea. At the same time, severe droughts have occurred in the middle and lower reaches of the Yangtze River in 2011, 2019, and 2022, respectively. On the other hand, in the rainy season, the upstream flood peak flows into the Three Gorges Reservoir and it forces the Three Gorges Reservoir to open the gates to discharge the floods every year. In recent years, most floods in the lower reaches of the Yangtze River have been caused by the release of floodwater from the reservoirs. China's official construction of reservoirs claim to be able to regulate droughts and floods and withstand floods. Still, it has become intercepting the flow in the dry season and releasing floods in the rainy season. So how effective is the Three Gorges Dam in preventing and fighting floods? Wikipedia has published the Three Gorges Dam Flood Control Reporting Controversy, which refers to the Chinese media reports from 2003 to 2010 that repeatedly downgraded the Three Gorges Dam flood control capacity. The Chinese public read the articles and compared the former and the latter, resulting in a strong social reaction. We can get a glimpse of this from the articles published by the Chinese official media. On June 1, 2003, the China News Network published an article entitled, "The Three Gorges Dam is as solid as gold and can withstand a flood that occurs once every 10,000 years, which said, "The Three Gorges Dam is 2.3 kilometers long, and the top of the dam, which has to be built with 18 million cubic meters of concrete, is 185 meters above sea level. And the maximum height of the dam is 181 meters, which is the height of a 60-story house." The Three Gorges Reservoir has a capacity of 39.3 billion cubic meters after normal impoundment, and there is a difference of more than 110 meters between the top and the bottom of the dam. According to the design, the Three Gorges Dam must withstand a flood of the Yangtze River that occurs once every 10,000 years. On May 8, 2007, China Sina News published another article entitled, "The Three Gorges Dam will be able to withstand a 1,000-year flood from this year onwards." The article mentioned Feng Zhengping, head of China Yangtze River Three Gorges Project Development Corporation, said that the Three Gorges Dam can meet the flood control standard of 1 in a 1,000-year flood this year. On October 21, 2008, China's Xinhua website published an article entitled, "The Three Gorges Dam can withstand a once-in-a-century flood." According to the article, Li Yonggong, general manager of China Yangtze River Three Gorges Project Development Corporation, said in an interview with Xinhua News Agency that the completion of the Three Gorges Dam is a significant milestone that will enable the Three Gorges project to realize its flood prevention benefits 2 years ahead of schedule. The Three Gorges Dam can withstand a 1-in-100-year flood during this year's flood season. On July 20, 2010, major Chinese media released a news article titled, "Yangtze River Water Conservancy Commission, we can't pin all our hopes on the Three Gorges Dam." The article said, according to the theory, when the dam reaches the height of 175 meters, it can withstand a 100-year flood. But now the Three Gorges project wants to withstand a 100-year flood is almost impossible. Why? There are still 28,470,000 immigrants below the 175-meter elevation who have not been removed. Therefore, this year's Three Gorges Reservoir wants to achieve the highest capacity to mediate floods, which basically cannot be done. Therefore, the person in charge also said that the capacity of the Three Gorges Reservoir to face floods this year is also limited. Once the Three Gorges Dam is built, it will be blown up. This statement was not made by a Western expert but by Mr. Huang Wanli, a Chinese hydraulic engineer. Why does this expert strongly oppose the construction of the Three Gorges Dam? If built, Professor Huang Wanli believes the Three Gorges Dam will face three major fatal problems. The first problem is security. The Three Gorges and the national defense is our weakness in the eyes of our enemies. People do not use atomic bombs. An ordinary bomb will lead the dam to collapse immediately. The Three Gorges Dam basin area is 100 square kilometers in size and has a total reservoir capacity of 39.3 billion cubic meters. Once the dam breaks down, 39 billion tons of floodwater will be unimpeded to flood half of China, and China will no longer have plains. The power of the Three Gorges Dam would be 10 times greater than a nuclear bomb. The second reason is the ecological environment. The dam's construction will damage the ecosystem on both sides of the reservoir area, leading to sedimentation and siltation of the Yangtze River and drought in the lower reaches of the river, which will cause serious ecological problems. The third reason is that the annual maintenance costs will also be astronomical, in addition to the huge cost of building the dam. Let's take a look at a video posted by a netizen. Suppose the Three Gorges Dam were to collapse, affecting major cities in China. After the Three Gorges Dam collapses, floodwaters up to 100 meters high will rapidly descend, and the floodwaters cannot be dispersed due to the barrier of the mountains on both sides of the river, and the flow speed of the floodwaters will be more than 100 kilometers per hour. And the Three Gorges to the city of Yichang in Hebei Province is 50 kilometers away, and the floodwaters can reach the city in 30 minutes, and floodwaters as high as 20 meters high will destroy the whole town of Yichang rapidly. Floodwaters are moving at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour after crossing the city of Yichang, submerging towns and cities along the way. The floodwaters are about 15 meters high, and after rushing out of the mountainous terrain, they spread out in a fan-like pattern along the plains, covering a vast area of the affected area. The distance from the Three Gorges to Wuhan, the capital city of Hebei Province, is 700 kilometers. The peak of the floodwaters will arrive 10 hours after the dam collapse, and the inundation depth in Wuhan will be about 5 meters. Then, 15 hours after the dam breaks, the flood peak will reach Zhujiang City in Jiangxi Province. Due to the mountains at its back, the city will be flooded by up to 7 meters, making it very difficult to recede. The floodwaters are dispersed as they enter the open fields, and some of the water will remain in some lakes. The floodwaters will enter Nanjing 24 hours after the dam collapses, where the flooding will essentially end. Since June this year, floods have continued to occur frequently across China, following the floods in Meizhou, Guangdong Province and Guilin, Guangxi Province, and not long ago the collapse of the dike of Dongting Lake in Hunan Province, China's second largest freshwater lake, led to significant economic and property losses. While condemning the officials for their ineffectiveness in disaster relief, Chinese netizens also questioned the function of China's tens of thousands of reservoirs in combating floods, with some even suggesting that the reservoirs have not only failed to prevent floods, but also aggravated the severity of the floods. To address this issue, on July 14th this year, Radio France Internationale interviewed Mr. Wang Weiliu, a water expert living in Germany, who said, "Today, the total number of reservoirs in China is close to 100,000 or 98,000 to be precise, and Hunan Province, where the recent floods occurred, is the province with the largest number of reservoirs in China, with a total of 14,000 reservoirs, accounting for 15% of the total number. Reservoirs must meet certain technical requirements to fulfill various necessary and desirable functions. For example, to meet the requirements for flood control, the ratio between the reservoir capacity and the average water flow through the reservoir must be large enough. Take the earliest Guanting Reservoir as an example. The ratio when it was built was 1:1. After the reservoir was expanded later, this ratio reached 2:1. The Miyun Reservoir in Beijing also has the same ratio. In comparison, the ratio of the storage capacity to water flow of China's Three Gorges Reservoir is only 0:0.9. So only from this point of view, the Three Gorges Dam is a dam without flood control function. The reporter asked, so isn't flood control and disaster relief the most important function given when the Three Gorges Dam was designed? Why has the flood control function of the Three Gorges Reservoir been questioned? When the Chinese government built the reservoir, it claimed that it could regulate droughts and floods, but in fact it capped water in the dry season and released floods in the rainy season. In recent years, most floods in various parts of China are caused by reservoir discharge. In this regard, Mr. Wang Weiliu replied, when the purpose of building reservoirs is to prevent floods and droughts, reservoirs play the role of a tool, but today's reservoirs are not only no longer a tool for flood prevention and disaster relief, they often become the object of protection. The purpose of disaster relief is to prevent dams from damming, and not to care about whether the release of floodwater to the downstream will result in the loss of life and property of the people. Especially in this year's flood season, the most important goal is the 4 no's. No casualties, reservoirs do not collapse dams, critical levees do not break, and essential facilities will not be impacted. That's all for today. Please like, subscribe, leave a message, and share it with your friends. See you next time.